welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. If you are new, hey, hi, hello, my name is Ashton and welcome to my book channel. So if you saw the title of today's video, then you would know that we are talking about pop girlies. This is born out of a TikTok that I saw. Actually, that's a lie, I'm not on TikTok anymore. This was born out of some Instagram reels that I saw and YouTube shorts. Y'all, what y'all know about YouTube shorts? Because I stay on there. And the whole premise is like, oh, like, however close I stand to the camera is how much I like the pop girlies or whatever, and it's like a whole thing. So anyway, that inspired today's video, which is recommending books based off of your favorite pop girly. That being said, if you don't see your favorite pop girly, I'm sorry. If you're wanting to hear more book recommendations based off of music, let me know. Leave it in the comments below, whoever I missed. I know a couple big people that I missed, but let me know regardless, and I will do the best that I can to accommodate. Okay, I've got here all of my recommendations written down to make sure I don't miss any, because some of them I don't have physically, but I did the best that I could. And I gotta say, y'all, I'm actually kind of proud of some of these recommendations, although I do feel like that I'm going to have to like really, I don't know, defend myself. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay, so table of contents. These are the pop stars that we're going to be talking about today. Gracie Abrams, Billie Eilish, Ariana Grande, Olivia Rodrigo, Taylor Swift, Sabrina Carpenter, and Harry Styles. See what you want to say. Okay, for every pop girly, I want to do about 3 recommendations, but there are some in which I have a couple more than 3. Okay, so we're starting off strong with Gracie Abrams. For Gracie Abrams, I actually do listen to her like a good amount. When I think of Gracie Abrams, I feel like a lot of people think like heart-wrenching a little bit, but like when I think of Gracie Abrams, like there's something about the acoustic sound that she has. Every single time that I think of Gracie Abrams, I think like friends to lovers, like summer vibes, something like very wholesome, and with that comes like very real heartbreak, sure, but I also just think of like a wholesome relationship. Starting off strong with Gracie Abrams is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han, which I know is like a pretty mainstream suggestion. I know, you know, a lot of people, I think a lot of people too, when they think The Summer I Turned Pretty, they think Taylor Swift because she did some of the music for that show. But for me, when I think The Summer I Turned Pretty, I kind of think Gracie Abrams, because I'm thinking like, you've come to this beach house. Oh, maybe I should like give a summary. The Summer I Turned Pretty, in case you don't know, if you're not following, if you haven't been following for a couple of years, it follows a girl named Billie, and basically she's like, her name is, I think, like Isabella or something. I don't really remember. Every single summer she goes to Cousins Beach, and she basically, her mom has this best friend, and of course the best friend has like these sons that she's ready to date. Billie goes there every single summer. She's always had a crush on like the older brother Conrad, but recently also she's like kind of been looking at Jeremiah, but also like she just comes and enjoys her, you know, summers or whatever. But I think like the summer that she turns 16, they kind of start showing an interest in her too, and it's suddenly like these friendships that she's had all of these years, like growing up together and stuff like that, it's kind of put on the line. And also both brothers kind of feel something for her, so it's like having to choose between the brothers. I don't know, this reminds me of Gracie Abrams, because I'm just thinking like this kind of love, like growing up together, like growing together, not having to do anything spectacular just because like being together is spectacular. And so I don't know, there's something about it that just like really reminds me of Gracie Abrams, this like friends to lovers, growing together, wholesome kind of like, I don't know, earthy acoustic moment. So that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation for Gracie Abrams is kind of in the similar vein. The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther, another book that I think a lot of people have talked about. I read this book a couple of last spring break, I think, actually. I did really like it. I've always said that the strongest thing in this book is the setting. But again, if you see Gracie Abrams in the same way that I see Gracie Abrams, then I think it's like working for you. This kind of feels a little bit like, what's that movie? What's that movie with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell? that one though. So basically, this is about a girl named Meredith. She lost her sister some months ago, and I think this is like every summer the family goes to Martha's Vineyard, and they play like a huge game of assassin. But this summer they're gathering for a huge like wedding or whatever, and that's why I say it reminds me of that movie. But they're gathering for like this really big wedding, and so she's determined to kind of like get back on the swing of things because she's kind of been a little like cut off or whatever since her sister died. And so she's determined to kind of get back in the swing of things again, but she's also still kind of like grieving her sister and like doing these family activities without her sister, and it just feels kind of like empty and numb. Oh, and she's also like putting a really big emphasis on winning this game of assassin for her sister, which is, it feels silly in the moment, but it's also kind of like a deep just like way of dealing with the grief. And there is also a love interest. I think she makes an alliance with one of the groomsmen, and you know, romance ensues. It's another just kind of like one of those like summery acoustic things, but it also still has that like undercurrent of something very real and raw, which I think Gracie Abrams does a lot of. So the next one I have is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Again, not a super underground wreck, but I do think it's worth talking about. So as we see again, we've got this friends to lovers romance arc, but I think that with Gracie Abrams, like there is kind of this like undercurrent of like friends to lovers to enemies to strangers to friends to complication, you know? And I think that that is People We Meet on Vacation. People We Meet on Vacation also is giving like that summery vibe, because I think we have this like kind of quirky, like fun main character, which kind of gives me Gracie Abrams vibes, and then also this undercurrent of like friends to lovers. And it's a little bit, it's an adult novel, so it's a little bit, you know, fun, like humor wise. Like I feel like it's a little bit aged up from some of the other recommendations I've been giving. So if the other ones don't work for you, maybe try People We Meet on Vacation, because I think that that might fit the vibe. Okay, and then the last recommendation I have for Gracie Abrams is going to be any Morgan Matson book. There's something about the humor in a Morgan Matson book that I think vibes with songs by Gracie Abrams, like This Is What It Feels Like, and like In Between Again, like stuff like that, where it's just kind of this more like bubbly ish vibe. Maybe I should say Gracie Abrams in love is what Morgan Matson feels like to me. So take that with what you will. So what I wrote on my list was The Unexpected Everything, but I also think it could work for Second Chance Summer. I also think it could work for Since You've Been Gone, or even maybe Save the Date. I would go probably any Morgan Matson book, because I think that typically she is like a fan of a little bit more of like a golden retriever-y love interest, a lot more of like a friends to lovers vibe. I would go for any kind of Morgan Matson recommendation. Usually summery, usually got that like humorous acoustic-y feel, usually friends to lovers. Moving on. So the next artist on my list is Billie Eilish, okay? No. So the first book on my list for Billie Eilish is White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. I've heard it pronounced Oyeyemi and Oyeyemi, so I'm not really sure, but I've read a few books by this author. We have beef personally. There's something about her writing that is like very academic maybe. It's like, it's one of those writing styles where it feels a little bit pretentious, and I don't mean that in like a mean way. I just mean it feels like almost, it feels so smart and so brilliant that it's almost like slightly inaccessible. Don't let that put you off, because I know I am recommending these books. So this book though, I'm recommending it for like the vibes of Billie Eilish. Like maybe not Happier Than Ever, but certainly To Bury a Friend. No, that's not the name of that album. When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Honestly, it's so hard to describe Helen Oyeyemi's novels because there's so many aspects of them and they just like kind of don't make any sense. But again, I think it's like the trippy, like uncomfortable, like eerie vibes in this novel that really remind me of Billie Eilish. And I love Billie Eilish, okay? Let me just read it to you. Let me read it. There's something strange about the Silver family's house in the closed-off town of Dover, England. Grand and cavernous, with hidden passages and buried secrets, it's been home to 4 generations of Silver women. Anna, Jennifer, Lily, and now Miranda, who has lived in the house with her twin brother Elliot ever since their father converted it to a bed and breakfast. The Silver Women have always had a strong connection and a pull over one another that reaches across time and space. And when Lily, Miranda's mother, passes away suddenly while on a trip abroad, Miranda begins suffering strange ailments. An eating disorder starves her, and that's pica that she has, by the way. She begins hearing voices. When she brings a friend home, Dover's hostility towards outsiders physically manifests within the four walls of the Silver House, and the lives of everyone inside are irrevocably changed. And when it says physically manifest, Dover, like, the house is alive, bro. Like, the house is literally a character. You hear from the point of view of the house. This is like Monster House, but like, instead of the house like just like straight up being creepy, like the house is creepy and horrifying, but it's also like racist and xenophobic, which is kind of interesting. The thing about Helen Oyeyemi is like there's always kind of this plot of like folktale, fairy tale influence, so you're feeling a lot of that as well. But like there's also just like weird kind of sinister undercurrents between Elliot and Miranda. There's like some weird tension there, even though they're siblings. And now, why does this keep coming up in my YouTube videos? I need to really meditate on that, because that's alarming. Every scene just feels like tense and eerie, and it's like people hidden in the walls. The house is alive. Just like, it's really giving like Billie Eilish's first album. So White is for Witching, Billie Eilish fans. So the next recommendation, I swear I have it somewhere, but I don't know where it is. I'm briefly going to talk about this. This recommendation is Carmilla. It's been a long time since I've read this. I actually read this for my vampire like seminar class that I had. So Carmilla is interesting and reminds me of Billie Eilish in that it really kind of gives like guess, lunch. The novelty of this book is that we're seeing kind of like the first female vampire, like a young woman vampire who's like preying on other young women, and it takes place like in this like castle. And I don't know, it feels like olden gothic, but it's also like vampiric and like women. So if you're into that, and I think if you're really into Billie Eilish, especially modern Billie Eilish, then I think that you would be into Carmilla. I always have to throw like a young adult recommendation in there because that's just me. So the next recommendation I have for you guys is The Raven Boys. So it's still feeling a little bit supernatural, but maybe a little bit less intense than Carmilla or White is for Witching. It's still supernatural, but it's a little bit more like questy. It's still got like ghosts and stuff like that, but just a little bit less on the like horrific, sinister nature of it all. So this is actually a book series. It's a 4-book series written by Maggie Stiefvater, and it follows a girl named Blue. From what I remember, it follows like her, and then it follows like 4 kind of like prep school boys. Blue's really interesting because she lives in kind of like a clairvoyant family, and her family is super intriguing. But Blue herself, her power is really just that like she's kind of a battery almost, like amplifies kind of everyone else's power. Hello? Anyway, so she's kind of got this habit of, you know, like staying away from those like private school boys who are also known as the Raven Boys. But one day a guy named Gansey like comes up to her and he tells her, hey, like we're on this quest to hunt down the Raven King. Do you want to participate? And she's like, and remember, there's like that prophecy over her where her true love will die, like, that she will cause her true love to die. But as her life becomes caught up in the strange and sinister world of the Raven Boys, she's not so sure anymore. Last but not least on my recommendations for Billie Eilish, we have Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. Yes, this is based kind of off of like me knowing that she like about Chihiro and like doing like the music video, like a little bit kind of inspired by like Spirited Away. So like there's of course like a connection between Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away and like Studio Ghibli and stuff. But I haven't read any like of those influences, but I have started this book. And so I still wanted to like put this on your radar in case you were interested. And I talked about it in a different video that I did, but Howl's Moving Castle follows a young girl named Sophie. And Sophie is basically living in like this I don't know, I mean, I think like her dad died or something and she's working in this like hat shop or whatever with her stepmom. But one day, like, the Witch of the Waste, who is just like this kind of like evil witch, comes into the shop and curses Sophie and turns her literally into like this old woman. And now mind you, like, Sophie was like a young girl. Anyway, simultaneously there's this guy who like lives in this like just monstrosity heap of actual junk that somehow moves, named Howl, and he is like a wizard, like a capital W wizard, you know what I mean? And so his like kind of lore though is that he kills young women, like he lures like young girls to him, and then I guess like he wizards them out of existing. I'm not really sure. So everybody's kind of like, oh, like gotta hide from Howl, like gotta hide from Howl. But Sophie is like, you know what, like I don't have anything left to lose, like I'm an old woman at this point, like maybe if I get to Howl, he can like use some type of like wizard like magic on me and turn me back into like a young girl or whatever. But of course, it's almost like Pride and Prejudice in the way that like when Sophie meets Howl though and like actually spends time with him, she realizes that he's, you know, different than how he first seemed. So yes. Also, he doesn't know that she's like a young girl. He just like thinks that she's like an old woman who like comes to his like, you know, super amazing hotel to like clean up and get on his nerves. So the next pop girlie that we're going to talk about is Ariana Grande. And I know this might be controversial, but I've like recently become an Ariana Grande fan. I was a huge fan of Eternal Sunshine. Like I've always basically said that I like Ariana Grande and I like her voice a lot. I even like her vibe, but I just always like kind of underestimate her music, I guess, in a way, because I feel like she has this like powerhouse voice, like just amazing voice, and uses it in like a very breathy, like one note for like half a millisecond type way. But Eternal Sunshine really opened up something different for me, and I don't know if that's just like actually I've been misreading her this whole time, or if it's just Eternal Sunshine that I liked. I don't know, I haven't really gotten into that. But for Eternal Sunshine, like it's the layering and the harmonies that are in that album are just so genius that I love it. And I've also just like been following Ariana Grande like very closely, and obviously like the tea with like Ethan Slater and stuff, and Wicked, and of course, and whatever. But anyway, I wanted to give you guys some book recommendations that remind me of her, based off of like my minimal kind of Ariana Grande knowledge. I wanted to go something magical because of like her absolute love and adoration for Wicked, but I also just don't see her as like, you know, like a super, like I don't see her as like Throne of Glass, like Fourth Wing type of person, even though I think that she would enjoy those series. Like I'm also trying to think of like the person herself, and I wanted to do something that was like magical but also still kind of rooted in reality, and so this is what I ended up on: The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Okay, so the book follows a girl named Clementine, and basically she moves into her aunt's apartment. Her aunt has just passed away, and she walks in and there's just like this super, you know, cute dude standing in her apartment, and she's like, hello, hi. And that's when she realizes that her aunt's apartment is actually magical because he's existing in the same space as she is, but just 7 years in the past. And so it's kind of like a weird, you know, like whirlwind, like time continuum type of romance where like these two are meant for each other and in love for each other, but also like in a space that is like not allowing that love to exist, but also like is allowing that love to exist. And I feel like that's very Ariana Grande coded, in that like I really feel like she believes in like fate and like hard decisions when it comes to love. And so like I think that something that just inherently complicates your relationship is Ariana Grande coded. I don't know. It's really about like reconciling like right person, wrong time type of situation. And it really just feel like that's like the tea between everyone in Ariana Grande's life at this moment. I had to put it in there, okay? Next thing on my recommendations is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, because it's not an Ashton video if I don't talk about Jennifer Lynn Barnes. When I think of Ariana Grande, I think kind of like bougie. Like I think, sorry, there are people literally doing yard work outside, so please ignore that. But when I think Ariana Grande, like part of me does think like rich. I don't know if it's like the 7 rings in me or what, but part of me just thinks like rich, like bougie, like nice, like whatever. And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, what books do I have that's like about rich people? And this is what I came up with. So the Inheritance Games follows a girl named Avery, and she's like, you know, actually like not rich, like just kind of like living her life when she learns that like super rich millionaire, billionaire, whatever the frick, like left her his inheritance instead of his family. To get the fortune, she has to like move into the mansion with the family who was just disinherited and solve like all of these puzzles and all of these games and whatever, because the guy who died, Tobias Hawthorne, was like super into like, you know, clues and riddles and puzzles and whatever else. I guess like the relationship there though was really like 7 rings. What do I have that is like 7 rings? And this is what I got. But I do kind of think that this recommendation works a little bit. This recommendation is fully funded out of Galinda, okay? I'm not gonna lie. It is the powerful novella for the series Powerless, okay? I always recommend this novella as if it were not even part of the series, because this novella was so profound to me. I don't know. So if you don't know this novella, I'm not gonna give too much away because obviously I don't want to spoil Powerless for you, and I fear that this would. But this follows, if you read Powerless, it follows a main girl named Peyton. And she is like a sister figure. This is not her actual like by blood sister, but it's just, you know, they've kind of like grown together just due to like trauma and circumstance. This book follows her like sister, which is Adina. And so Peyton in Powerless is very like Katniss Everdeen, like Triss, like she's very much like that typical young adult like protagonist or whatever. But Powerful follows like a more like gentle, like soft-hearted, like tender kind of main character. And I know I talked about this a lot in my last video, so I'm not gonna belabor the point, but there is something about this that I feel like matches Galinda a lot, and that like I feel like Elphaba is very much like, oh, like there's a moral injustice, like I need to go and like fight, like physically, like tangibly, like right now I cannot stand the injustice, like whatever. Whereas I feel like Galinda is very much like, okay, but like we need to play the game, like we can do things a softer way, like my dreams don't look like yours, but also my resistance doesn't look like yours, my, you know, rebellion doesn't look like yours, but it's rebellion nonetheless. And that is exactly how I feel about Powerful. And so I think that this is a story that if you're really into Galinda as a character, then you might be very into Powerful. Like Adina is definitely less like manipulative, I think, but if you're into kind of like that like softer, just like alternative approach to resistance, then I would definitely check out the Powerful novella, because this is gas. This is really gas. So I stand wholeheartedly by this recommendation. Okay, so the next pop girly is Olivia Rodrigo. Speaking of Powerful, I'm recommending you guys Powerless. Oh, I didn't even realize there was a Target sticker on the front. Sorry. This is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. And so is the recommendation based off of like the purple and the black? A little bit, but also there is something about it. Okay, so this follows a girl named Peyton, and she's different than everybody else, obviously, because she is a main character. So the point of this is that society is separated into like elites and ordinaries. And elites are people who have powers, and ordinaries are people who do not have powers. Accepting that like the ordinaries have pretty much been like just entirely exterminated, banished from society entirely. Peyton is an ordinary, but she's pretending that she has powers in order to live and to stay in her kingdom. And so she was trained by her father as a psychic, because it's easier to fake that ability kind of thing. She's just like very observant, like very good at fighting, like whatever, you know. It's always kind of like, oh, like don't underestimate her, you know what I mean? One day she literally accidentally saves one of the prince's lives, like one of the princes of the kingdom, and then she gets entered like pretty much into these like trials. Like she's known as like the silver savior, and then she gets thrown into these like Hunger Games. Yeah, so they're called the purging trials, where they showcase like the elite's powers, which is funny though because she's like not an elite though. But because she saved that dude's life, right, and nobody here is supposed to be an ordinary, he's like, oh, like, you can fight, like, whatever, and everybody's, like, super into her, right, because they're like, oh, you saved our prince, like, whatever, like, purging trials for you. It's, like, the same type of, like, it's entertainment to watch these people, like, get after each other in this way. So anyway, why I think it relates to Olivia Rodrigo is really just because when I think Olivia Rodrigo, I think, like, spunky teenage vibes. And for this, I really just feel like that, I don't know, I really just feel like that Peyton is, like, spunky, like, she would be playing Brutal. I really just feel like that she would be playing, I honestly, and Traitor, too. I really just feel like that the soundtrack to Peyton's life could be sour. Okay, you betrayed me, but I know that you never feel sorry for the way I hurt. I don't know, it's got the heartbreak, and but it's also got the punchiness of like an Olivia Rodrigo thing. And yes, it is black and purple. So all right, next. So next on this list, we have Love in Other Words. There's something about this. It's really, when I think Olivia Rodrigo, I think that her brand right now is like very the teenage experience. And when I think Love in Other Words, like, something that really stuck out to me when I read that book back the first time was the kind of like clumsiness of, you know, telling this raw-ish story about friends who were like just clumsily finding their way into intimacy and with each other, like relationship with each other, and like being honest with each other. And so I think that like that really feels like a teenage experience, as Olivia Rodrigo kind of likes to sing about. So it's about two people, Macy and Elliot, and they were literally like friends to lovers, like the ultimate friends to lovers, and you watch them fall in love. And it's like people we meet on vacation, but better, because it's like the falling out is so complex and just heartbreaking, like literally heart-wrenching. The story starts with them like in the present. They run into each other again, and then we start going into like dual timelines where we're seeing them kind of like interact here in the present after they're falling out, but then we also get this story of like how they fell in love and what that looked like, and just like what it means to grow up together. For me, this really fits in with some of those like more vulnerable, heart-wrenching parts about Olivia Rodrigo. My last recommendation for Olivia Rodrigo lovers is maybe something a little bit nicer. We have The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I saw something recently that was like, I swear if I get recommended better than the movies by Lynn Painter one more time, oh my gosh, I just found a bookmark. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. So I thought I would do a little something different and recommend The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. These beautiful sprayed edges, by the way. Like, are you kidding me? You guys know like how I feel about Lynn Painter. I think she's like a good author. I think like I would definitely read her books. They bring me joy. They feel very sunshiny. They're not my favorite books in the world. They're not my favorite young adult books in the world, but I do think they're very atmospheric, like very vibey. And so I feel like they just like kind of lend themselves to a little bit of like a video like this. So The Do-Over is about a girl named Emily, and basically the idea is that she lives Valentine's Day over and over and over again because she keeps catching her boyfriend cheating on her. Like she'll like the original Valentine's Day, she catches her boyfriend cheating on her, and then she's trying to like keep him from cheating on her the next day and the next day and the next day. And she basically recruits, I think like her enemy, I don't even know, this guy who like kind of gets on her nerves, named Nick. And they're trying to like keep her boyfriend, I think his name's like Josh or something, from cheating on her literally every single day that she has to keep reliving. And of course, you know, it's the typical like, I feel like this is typical for Lynn Painter, like trying to go for this guy, but it's like this guy has been treating you so much better and he's standing right here type of thing. So I feel like that, I don't know, there's something that's like a little bit more like lighthearted and fun, but also just like teenage ragey, like romancy about it that I think really fits well in Olivia Rodrigo's vibes. So the next one we have is Sabrina Carpenter. All right, so the first one I recommend is Love in the Time of the Serial Killers. Yes, by Alicia Thompson. And you guys know, I don't know if I feel like I've talked about this before on my channel. I wasn't crazy about this book, but I think that, you know, I think it's more so of a thing of like, there are people, and I know that there are people who would love this book though, just not for me. Look at this cover. Are you kidding? Can you see that? this is definitely something that I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Sabrina Carpenter would be all over this. It feels like punchy and fun. Like, I don't know, I feel like Sabrina Carpenter is like, loves like a little like campy moment. She loves something fun, something that's like very committed to the bit, and I feel like that this is that. The actual book itself follows a PhD candidate named Phoebe. She's like really into true crime, and so she's analyzing the genre of true crime in her dissertation, but she's home in Florida, like in her childhood home, because I think her dad just passed away. And so she's like cleaning out her childhood home. She's like cleaning out this home, but it's like complicated because she didn't really have a great relationship with her father, but she's still here having to clean out the home. Also though, she's trying to write her dissertation, which like is so hard. And then she's also got this like neighbor who like, she low-key is convinced that he's a serial killer. And I just feel like that is just unhinged enough to work well in this category. But of course she like, you know, it's like, oh, like she thinks that he might be a serial killer, but she's kind of into him. And I just think that there's something about this that feels committed to the bit enough that I think Sabrina Carpenter would be all over this book. Next we have Daisy Jones and the Six, and this is really just a vibe. I don't know if I can even explain this, and I don't think I have to tell you guys the plot of this because I'm certain everyone has heard Daisy Jones and the Six by now. Just think like interview style with Fleetwood Mac and you get the whole tea, and that's kind of like the vibe, right? There's something about this that feels very Sabrina Carpenter to me. And I don't know if it's like the style of music or if I just really think that she would get away with that era and like that decade and like be there, like those decades and be there with it, or if it's just like, I don't even know. I really can't describe, I really can't explain it, but there's something very Sabrina Carpenter to me about Taylor Jenkins Reid, and specifically this book. The last one I have in this category is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I'm recommending you a classic. So Sense and Sensibility follows two sisters, Marianne and Eleanor, and Eleanor is like a little bit more sophisticated, and Marianne is like, oh, like I just want to marry for love, and like, you know, and I think that they both kind of want to marry for love, but Marianne is like supposed to be a lot more immature, kind of just like taken up with like a cute guy, whereas Eleanor is, you know, a little bit more like that sensible, like, hey, like let's actually think about this, like let's actually, you know, think it out or whatever. Eleanor is in love with a man named Edward, but like he's low-key already engaged, and then Marianne falls in love with this guy who's like super cute, but like the reputation is not gas. And so it's really just like, it's kind of that signature Jane Austen. This actually might be my favorite Jane Austen, certainly book maybe. I think that this one is so clever and it's so witty, and when I think Sabrina Carpenter, I think cleverness, I think wit, I think like she loves to poke fun at like failed relationships, and you know, there's that one line in her deluxe album about like, we all know I love to share, and it's like, that's funny. And so I think that like Sense and Sensibility with that like many suitors, rascals, already engaged, we were trying to think sensibly about this. How have we failed so miserably at finding good men? Like, I think that this is really, really up Sabrina Carpenter's alley for just like some of the jokes that she makes and the songs, you know, that she kind of like vibes with. So this is definitely on my recommendations. It's very witty, it's very funny, it's very Sabrina Carpenter to me. We're gonna move into Taylor Swift now, and I only put 3 things because I low-key want to do recommendations by Taylor Swift albums, because I feel like that she has so many albums out that it's hard to be like, and these are my Taylor Swift recommendations, you know what I mean? So the first one I'm going to recommend to you guys is The Hunger Games, because she did music for it, and I'm not kidding. But also, she is who I think of as a musical artist for these Hunger Games, specifically old Taylor Swift, but there's some new songs that I really just think nail it every time. The Great War or something like that. Yeah, The Hunger Games I just think is like, it's so complex in my mind that it needs like a Taylor Swift level of complexity assigned to it. Like they're just kind of like meshed in my mind. When Taylor Swift is storytelling, like when she's, you know, because a lot of the time she will sit there and imagine like, well, there's people in life who are doing like this, and I wanted to write about like what does it feel like to be that person. And I feel like that is very much like giving her access to the Hunger Games. Next on my list of recommendations is Little Women, and this is because I feel like that Taylor Swift with her eras, like just hitting so many points of girlhood and womanhood publicly, and you know, having many different kinds of relationships in talking about those in songs publicly, has been almost like it can cover pretty much everything discussed in Little Women. But I also think like there are very many songs that Taylor Swift has where I'm like, that's very Jo March, that's Amy, that's Meg. So I think that like there's something about Taylor Swift growing up and experiencing girlhood and experiencing womanhood in front of an audience that is lending her towards the Little Women recommendation. But I also think that just, I don't know, the different eras align with some of the different girls, and I think that some of the topics that she carries with her are some of the things where it's like, wow, like this story really is timeless. So if you're into those themes of like girlhood and womanhood and growing up and like, you know, just difficult relationships and what it means to like have girlfriends and this and that, like I really think that Little Women is hitting it, and I think that Taylor Swift's music is hitting it. I think we all know what Little Women is about, but in case you don't, it is a story from the 1860s about a family, March family. It has 4 sisters, Amy, Beth, Meg, and Jo, and they are living in genteel poverty after their father is going off to fight in the Civil War, and their mother, Marmee, is at home with them, and it's literally just a story about girlhood. It's a story about girlhood and revolution and different ways that women can express themselves and sisterhood. It's honestly, it's something to behold. It's great. It's excellent. So my last recommendation for Taylor Swift is a book I don't think I've ever talked about on my channel, but something that I really had a great time reading it, and it reminds me a little bit more of like the darker parts of Taylor Swift, like the Reputation, like the Nobody No Crime, like something a little bit like that. Even like Mad Woman kind of feels very much this book to me, which is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. It's like a murder mystery that takes place on an island where it's like literally raining, and just like this mansion, this like decrepit old like Nana's 80th birthday mansion type of thing. After years of avoiding each other, Daisy Darker, first of all, Daisy Darker, that sounds like a Taylor Swift character. Daisy Darker's entire family is assembling for Nana's 80th birthday party in Nana's crumbling Gothic house on a tiny tidal island. Finally back together one last time, when the tide comes in, they will be cut off from the rest of the world for 8 hours. The family arrives, each of them harboring secrets. Then, at the stroke of midnight, a storm rages, and Nana is found dead. An hour later, the next family member follows. Trapped on an island where someone is killing them one by one, the Darkers must reckon with their present mystery as well as their past secrets before the tide comes in and all is revealed. But I think it's really more of like the scenery and like everything. I just feel like this has Taylor Swift written all over it, like the Gothic house and the secrets and the, you know, murder mystery, and you know, like, oh, I really do think it has Taylor Swift written all over it. Okay, so this is our last set of recommendations for this video, which is honorary pop girly, Harry Styles. So my first recommendation for fans of Harry Styles is going to be Book Lovers by Emily Henry. When I'm thinking Harry Styles, I am thinking low-key, like him traipsing around Europe with glasses on, like at the market. And for some reason, this is hitting for me. When I read this book, this literally takes place in North Carolina, and when I read it, I imagined like we were in Ireland, so take it with a grain of salt. But it follows a girl named Nora. She is a literary agent, and she is going to go visit Sunshine Falls, North Carolina with her sister Libby. It's like a town that like a story that Libby really loves, like a book Libby loves or whatever, is based on this town. Like I'm pretty sure that's what the vibes are. You know, like Libby's like, I think married and got kids, and so it's just been a long time since they've seen each other. She's been begging Nora to go, so she finally goes. But when she gets there, she like meets this editor who she had an epic run-in with many moons ago. Because like I said, Nora is a literary agent, and so she meets Charlie, who is an editor, and so like they're kind of running in similar circles. She's trying to enjoy this small town visit with her sister, and of course she keeps running into Charlie everywhere she goes. This reminds me of Harry Styles, I think, just because like when I think Harry Styles, like part of me thinks just like colorful, party, fun, vibes. And he has that song Carolina, this is in North Carolina. I don't make the rules. When I think Harry Styles, there's a part of me that really thinks Emily Henry, but there's also a part of me that thinks like literary. And so with the whole like literary aspect, I thought like maybe this is the Emily Henry I would choose for Harry Styles. Okay, this one came to me first. You can tell me if it's problematic. Love and Gelato. Because to me, like for Harry Styles, I just really think like gallivanting about Europe. Like doing fun stuff. Like what does he do in the bakery he serves? Like I don't know. And there's something about like when I read Love and Gelato, like to me it really just felt like a fun time. So this book follows a girl named Lena. She is spending her summer in Tuscany, but she's only there because it was her mother's dying wish for her to get to know her father, and that's from the Goodreads thing. But basically, yeah, so she's here to see her father. I think that her father like tends a cemetery, so he lives like in the cemetery, like the house that's on the cemetery. Yeah, so basically uncovering a magical world of secret romances, art, and hidden bakeries. Tell me that's not Harry Styles. So yeah, it's just a girl like uncovering stuff about her mother, like in the summer and vibes and yes, and abroad. So last but not least, I did a little bit of research to find out some stuff about Harry Styles' like books that he's read or recommended, and they were all so literary that I stumbled here. John Green's The Anthropocene Reviewed. So this is a collection of essays that John Green wrote basically about like the human condition and how humans interact with the world. And there's just like the very, very literary part of Harry Styles, like the part that's reading the poetry collections and thinking about the state of humanity, that I think would really vibe with this book. I mean, it's literally funny, complex, and rich with detail. The reviews chart the contradictions of contemporary humanity. If you're into the things that Harry Styles reads, then maybe you would be into The Anthropocene Reviewed. And I haven't read it yet. This is like my perception of this book. That is that on that. That's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed my recommendations of books for you guys based off of your favorite pop girly. Let me know in the comments below if you want any other pop girly representation, something that I did not get to, somebody that I did not mention that you're like, hello, why didn't you mention this person? Or if you have any other recommendations, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. You can find me on Instagram at AshtonByBooks, and you can also find me on Fable and a couple other places in the links down below. I want to say thank you so much for watching today's video. I will see you guys next week on this channel or at any given point in time on my Instagram. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.